Should I add shaker? Hey, it's Liam Killen. I have a lot of drum tips because, well, I'm a drummer. Oh, I just realized that I'm a drummer that's turned into a music producer. Today we're gonna look at my drum programming workflow. I've experimented a bunch with this and finally landed on something that's quite flexible. And so I'll be featuring Steven Slate Trigger in this one. There are many ways to use this plugin, one of them being to layer samples over an acoustic drum kit. In this case, you'd have several drum tracks. So let's say overheads, kick, snare, toms as well, hi-hats. And what you could do is go into the close mic track, so let's say kick or snare, and you could add a layer over top of what's already there. Or if you want, you could just completely replace what's there. So that's a separate thing, that's a really useful approach, but you could also use it for electronic drums and just swapping out drums completely within your mix. And that's basically what we're gonna be doing today. Essentially, you're able to change the sound of each drum on the fly, and this has been a real game changer for me. I use this approach now for pretty much every time that I program drums. If you're using Logic like me, you could program your drums via EXS24, but in this case, I have an external sequencer and I wanna get this done as quickly as possible, so I'm gonna use the OP1. Obviously, if you have another external sequencer or something that could program drums, you could use that. So I'm hearing this sort of beat. So that's a beat that's straight from Tony Allen. Rest in peace. First of all, we'll get a tempo for that. It's a bit quick, maybe 116. Even a little slower, 113. That's great. Okay, we'll go back to bar 8. Whatever. We'll call this hi-hats. So we're gonna program the hi-hats on all of the upbeats. One thing to take note of here is that because we're recording to audio, we can't change the tempo afterwards, but if you wanted to use the Logic sampler, EXS24, you'd have the luxury of being able to change the tempo afterwards. So you could pick and choose. I'm gonna check that tempo one last time to make sure it's good. We're gonna go with it. So let's program those hi-hats on the upbeats. At this point, it literally doesn't matter what sound you choose because we're gonna be switching it out anyways. So I'm gonna find any old hi-hat, this one, and I'll program that onto upbeats. Let's quantize that. 16th notes, bow. Okay, so those hi-hats do not sound good. That's fine. Okay, next we'll add kick. 3, 4. That's it. Same thing, we're gonna quantize it. Quantize 16th note. We don't need to click anymore. Snare. Let's try it. You know what? I want to add even more variation to that snare, so let's double up this pattern, and so the second time through, I could change up the snare pattern. Here we go. 2, 3, and. Quantize. I feel like some of those kicks are not quantized properly. Let's try that again, the second half. For some reason, there's like a little glitch in my Logic. Sometimes I have to quantize it twice, in particular with 16th notes. I'm not sure if you have the same problem. If you do, let me know in the comments, because I would love to fix that. Okay, great, so we have the core beat here. I'm gonna put this OP1 away, and we're gonna move on to the next step. Let's organize these tracks a little bit into a track stack. So Shift, select them all, Control, click, and then you have all these options here. Create track stack, summing stack, and we're gonna call this drums. Next, we're gonna upload the Steven Slate Trigger 2. Just to let you know, I'm not sure you could even download this one anymore. There's a new version called Platinum or Titanium. Let me just double check this. Yes, so Trigger 2 Platinum. That's the one that's available now. We're gonna upload these to each track. Steven Slate Trigger 2. These samples are mono, so we'll keep them mono. If this is your first time using the plugin, you have to assign where you want your samples to be pulled from. So to do that, you head to settings, select bass DIR. I selected my hard drive because I have a bunch of samples there to choose from. I also know right away that I'm gonna want to sidechain my hi-hats to either the kick or snare. So we're just gonna go ahead and do that right away. Native instruments, I like to use solid bass compression. Sidechain, so up here, and we'll sidechain it to, let's say snare for now. You know what? Actually,
let's do kick.
Obviously, right off the bat, there are no hi-hats. You can't hear them because we haven't selected a sound yet. So we'll head to browser. I'm going to use these samples here, stolen drums. I've been using these all the time recently. Go down to hi-hats and then just drop them in. One thing to take note of is that you have to make sure your sample is loud enough so that it's in between these two brackets right here. So in my case, I don't have an issue, but sometimes if you upload like a really quiet hi-hat sample, you have to lower the detail so that it hits the brackets. Okay, we'll do the same thing for kick. Trigger 2, mono, browser, stolen drums, and I'll head to kick. Boom, nice and organized. So that happens too sometimes. I think it's because the sensitivity is too high, perhaps. Let me just tweak this a bit. Yeah, so if your sensitivity is too high, sometimes you'll get like a double kick instead of just one. Annoying. Okay, I don't really like that kick though. Okay, that snare really needs some work. Trigger 2, browser, stolen drums, snares. I'm actually not feeling these snares. Let's head to a different sample pack. Samples from Mars, maybe get an 808 snare in there, perhaps? That's better. Another thing, I actually made a mistake because the kick never hits at the same time as the hi-hat, so there's basically no point in sidechaining that. So I'm gonna go back to sidechaining it to the snare, like this. You see it reacting. So now that snare is much more upfront. I like that. Maybe add a bit of saturation to the whole kit.
I like that.
You know what? We'll do one last thing. I think it's gonna feel pretty good if we just drop a sample in here. I'll try and find something. I like that already. Let's bounce it in place. And I might chop it up a little bit. I'm gonna change the starting point around a little bit. We're gonna move this first part to the end, like so. Let's try this. Okay, so we're developing something here. Let's double this and chop it up even more. Okay, so I'm chopping the second half, doubling the second half, and then that beep-a-doo, 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 that's only at the end. So now this is turning into an 8-bar phrase, turning into less of a loop now and more of a track. Like I might actually develop a track out of this. And And that's a great starting point. So we'll track stack this one as well. I'll call this keys, and we're gonna sidechain that to the drums as well. Should I add shaker? So the Steven Slate drum trigger definitely has many other features, but I just wanted to show you how I incorporate it into my own tracks. I should say that this track is actually really similar to a segment of one of my other releases. It's called Oh Cool. I'll leave a link to that in the description. It's on my SoundCloud. It's also on all other streaming platforms. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say. So this has been super fun, and we got a cool track out of it. It's been a win-win for both of us. If you're into this sort of content, hit the buttons, do all the things so that you could see more of this content. I'm a Logic/DAW software guy, but I also focus a lot on cool gadgets like OP1, SP404. I have a bunch of other music gadgets that we're gonna be looking into pretty soon, which is very exciting. And of course, I've been releasing tons of music with those said gadgets. We just got to 2K subscribers, so thanks for that as well. And I will see you guys in the next video. Huzzah!